Hey Cronies, how you doing? This is Barrett. I'm doing a video today about Remicade or Infliximab. Real quick, if you're interested in more of the videos that I'm going to be posting about Crohn's disease and you find this or other videos that I'm going to be doing helpful, go ahead and click the subscribe button and ding the bell and you will get updates every time I post a new video. I have a whole playlist curated for just my Crohn's videos. And I am going to go into a little bit of a quick overview just so anybody who hasn't watched previous videos kind of knows where I'm coming from on this. A basic overview is in September of 2019, I had my first flare, didn't know it was a flare, went to see a colorectal surgeon in December after months of pain and trying to figure out what was going on to be diagnosed with a fistula. Had an exam under anesthesia, EUA, where I had a partial fistulotomy and a ceton placed. A few months later, in February of 2020, I had a second fistula and a second ceton placed. At that time, I was sent to a GI doc and diagnosed with complex perianal Crohn's disease. So I was immediately prescribed Remicade. I'm going to give some basic information about my battle with my insurance company, however, over Infliximab Remicade. However, I'm going to do a deep dive into the insurance issue in case this happens to anyone else. Anyway, I have great coverage, great health insurance coverage. I was diagnosed, as I said, in early March of 2020 with complex perianal Crohn's. My doctor immediately prescribed 2 drugs for me to go on, one azathioprine, which is an immunosuppressant, technically a chemo pill, that is meant to reduce my immune system kind of down to zero to get the flare under control. Because at this point, my body was reacting to the stress in my life in a way that was creating these fistulas. And there was a concern that I was going to continue to have more of them. So he immediately put me on azathioprine, which my insurance company covered no problem, and prescribed a drug called Remicade or Infliximab. Remicade is an infusion. So you go to an infusion center and they put a little needle in your hand and do a drip for about 3 hours. And that's the process of the drug. So when I was immediately diagnosed and he prescribed this for me, I went home. We booked my first infusion for about 2 weeks later. And I got a call about 2 days later from my insurance company telling me that it had been denied. It was a nurse that called me. They wanted to put me on a recorded line and ask me all sorts of questions about what sorts of treatments I had tried before Remicade. So I had the wherewithal because my doctor is amazing, Dr. Deepak, and I'll link his information in the description below, as well as the videos I am going to reference later about Remicade. But I had the wherewithal because he had kind of warned me, your insurance company may deny this, but if you can, let me handle it. I'll go to fight for you to get the Remicade approved. So if you can, avoid their calls and don't fall into the trap of getting on a recorded line where they are going to try to get you saying things that will allow them to deny your treatment. So I figured out pretty quickly when the nurse was saying, hey, this is so-and-so from Anthem Blue Cross. I'm a nurse. I'm here to help you. I'm a caseworker. Not true. And can I ask you a series of questions? And so I immediately said, I'm sorry, this is a bad time. I can't talk right now. She immediately, can I get another time? Is there another time I can call you? Nope, click, bye. So she called me back 2 or 3 times, let him go to voicemail over and over and over. And they sent me a barrage of letters about each time they declined over the next probably 6 or 7 days. I'm going to say I got a letter about once a day. And again, my doctor's office said, ignore it. Don't worry about it. You've done everything you need to do. Let us handle it and we'll get you in there. So, and the insurance company did call me absolutely every single day, multiple times a day, leaving me messages, almost to the point of harassment. And when it wasn't just the nurse calling me that was my caseworker, They had a dietitian that wanted to call me and talk about my diet. They had all these people with these different titles that they wanted to call me with their support. So an overview of advice from me to you: if your GI doc is doing the battle for you with your insurance company, do not take their calls. They are not there to help you. They are there to deny your coverage. So be fully aware of that going in. Be open with your doctor. Have your doctor be open with you about what their process is for overcoming those kinds of issues, okay? About 8 or 9 days after the initial point where he had ordered the Remicade and I had the infusion coming up in 2 weeks, my doctor's office called and said, it's been approved. Your first infusion is still the same date you had. Do you have any questions? Naturally, I had a dozen questions. Am I going to be sick? Am I going to, be tired? Can I drive myself? What can I expect? And the nurse at my doctor's office that I was visiting with on the phone gave me a lot of great information. Number one, she said, so you can expect it to take about 3.5 hours to 4 hours your first time, mostly because you're going to have some intake forms to do at the infusion center. They are going to give you what's called pre-meds, which is just Tylenol and Benadryl. I will say, if Benadryl makes you, and she warned me, if Benadryl makes you sleepy, have someone drive you. So I did have my husband drive me to all of those first appointments. And then after then they'll take the Remicade, which I believe is a powder. I've actually never seen it to know if it's a powder or what it is, but they mix it with solution, so that's why I think it's a powder. But anyway, I'm gonna put a shot that I took at this last infusion this week of the box, so you can kind of see what it looks like. And she said they'll mix it up, they'll put it in a drip and put a little needle in, and it will drip in over a couple of hours. Just you can take your iPad, they have Wi-Fi, or you can use your AirPods or headphones, whatever, to connect to the little TVs that they have on the chairs. It's very fancy at the place I go. So I go to Barnes Jewish West County, in West County, St. Louis, Missouri. And so when you go in, it is basically these pods with these great recliners that have a heater and like a little massager. It's very bougie, so which I kind of like. But anyway, so she says it's a drip, and then about a half hour after you're done, maybe 45 minutes, they're going to keep you with the drip in and observe you just to make sure that you don't have any allergic reactions to the medicine, because you haven't had it before. So we want to make sure you're okay before we let you leave. And that's also why they give you the Benadryl before, to just kind of make sure that if there was going to be an allergic reaction, you already have something in your system to handle that. So I hang up with her and I'm thinking, okay, this is great. I'm finally having something that will help. I should note that at this point, my pain level was probably a 9. I could not sit in a chair upright. I could only sit laying down, like in a reclined position with a pillow underneath my bottom, because the fistulas were so painful. When I would go into doctor's offices for visits, I had to walk outside in the waiting room because I couldn't stand to sit in any of their seats, even if with a pillow. It was just too painful. And I thankfully had doctors who were willing to prescribe me pain meds to get through that pain, because it was incredible. And I should also mention, and I've talked about this in other videos on the channel, but for reference, I am a recovering alcoholic. So with any of my opioid drugs, I always give them to my husband, and we have kind of a deal about, he counts them. And again, I haven't abused any of those privileges of having them, but I do think that's important, that if you're a recovering addict in any way, shape, or form, you really need somebody in your home when it comes to opioids that can kind of keep an eye on you and just be a check. So if that applies to you, keep that in mind too. Anyway, so I'm in a ton of pain. I cannot wait to go have this infusion, because my doctors have said it's kind of the only thing that will treat my type of Crohn's and get me to a place where I could sit down again. I'm a writer, I've written a book, I'm trying to write a second book, so I spend a lot of time sitting down, and I really missed being able to sit down and work. So I was excited, I was ready to go. So I hop on the YouTubes and I start searching for videos on Remicade. I found a few, which I linked to my first Crohn's video. I'm gonna link them again in this video. I watched 3 that I loved that were helpful and took some of the fear away, gave me an idea of what to expect. But it is important to note that it's a drug, and just like any other drug, it's going to have a different reaction in everyone's body. So what it's like for me or what it's like for someone else here on YouTube isn't necessarily to be exactly what it's like for you. So go into it knowing that. But I kind of swore to myself after watching those videos, whenever I'm well enough, I'm going to create some videos of my own about this whole experience. So that if anybody is going through this, they can have one more person to kind of watch and say, that doesn't sound so bad, I can handle that. So anyway, the day comes for the infusion. I had watched the few videos that I could find, so I kind of knew what to expect, but I was still really anxious because up to that point, the pain had been incredible. There was a lot of anxiety around, will this work for me? And how quickly will it work for me? So this was kind of the miracle. So I go in for my first dose. They do doses in loading doses. So for me, what that meant was I had my first appointment in 2 weeks after my first appointment in March, 3rd week of March. 2 weeks later in April, I had another loading dose. And then I had one the 1st week of May, which was about a month after that second dose. And then after that, every 8 weeks. The reason I say I'm going to do another video on the insurance company fighting me on Remicade is currently we're fighting my insurance company to get me to monthly doses. So I'm going to get into that in that video. But we're just talking about the loading at this point. So first appointment comes in March. My husband drives me. I get there 20 minutes early because I am that bitch. And got there. I was terribly nervous. COVID-19 had just become a huge thing, so he was not allowed to come in with me. They weren't allowing any visitors, which made it much more like anxiety inducing for me. But anyway, I went in and they checked my temperature. I got on the elevator, went up to the infusion center and checked in, and I had an amazing, amazing nurse, and I'm not going to say her name because anybody who goes to West County, I don't want to put her name out there if she doesn't want it out there, but there is a specific nurse, and you know who you are if you're watching this, who has made this experience wonderful for me, and I could be brought to tears with how comfortable she made me. I hate needles, but she made me very comfortable. She was like, this is no big deal. We talked about Tiger King, which was like a new show on Netflix at the time, and she really put me at ease. She got me checked in, got me in back, set me up in my pod, which is what they call the little section that you're in, where you have a really nice reclining chair, again, a heater, a little massager, a television with cable and all kinds of things. I use Wi-Fi and played on my iPad, got on Twitter, all the things that I do. And anyway, so she got my needle in. She said, I'm gonna go and mix your stuff for you. I'll be right back. And I'm gonna bring your pre-meds. So she brings me the little cup with Benadryl and Tylenol. I will tell you the Benadryl is kind of amazing. I still use it every time I go in now, and I'm gonna continue to because tip of the trade, I tend to take a short nap. Like it makes me kind of sleepy. So I will take a nap as long as I can the first hour or two that my infusion's happening. This last week, I had a guy in there that was just snoring away, so I wasn't able to sleep. But and I didn't have my AirPods charged, so I couldn't like drown out his snoring. But normally, I can take a nice nap at the beginning for about an hour, hour and a half, and that kills a lot of the time. So anyway, I go in, she puts my needle in, they mix the Remicade, they put in the drip, and basically you just sit there and do nothing for about 2 hours and 45 minutes, 3 hours sometimes, until it's all over. And then they come back in a few times and they'll check your blood pressure, check your temperature, check your pulse, just kind of your vitals. And then when it's done for the first loading visits, the first 3 visits, they're going to have you stay for 30 to 45 minutes just to make sure there's not an allergic reaction, like I said. So the needle has to stay in, but you just kind of hang out and wait. They do have snacks. which I love. I have made suggestions about which snacks I would like to see more of and less of. I'm sure they don't appreciate that, but I don't really care. They also have like drinks. They can bring you a Gatorade or a tea or, you know, water, whatever you need. They are very accommodating. Two more tips that I want to throw out there. So my amazing nurse, one of the things she told me when she had trouble finding a vein the first time was to get an electrolyte drink. So for every single time I have an infusion, I get one of those giant Pedialytes, and I drink as much water as I can that morning, as well as a Pedialyte, to be as hydrated as possible because it makes it easier to find your vein. Tip of the trade number 2, warm blankets. If your infusion center does not offer a warm blanket to wrap around your hand before they stick you, get one of those beanbag things for your neck that you can heat up in the microwave. Warm it up before you go and wrap your hand in it on the drive over. It will help your veins rise up and make it easier for them to find you for the stick. I am queasy, hate needles. So anything I can do to make that easier, awesome sauce. So electrolyte drink, Pedialyte, whatever, and some kind of a warm blanket to make that vein rise up and be a little easier for them to find. Okay, so when I was done with the loading dose the first time, I'm fine, there's no allergic reaction. I went outside, got in the car with my husband, because I don't know if it's the Benadryl and the Remicade or what, but I'm usually completely wiped. I mean, I go in at noon every time and get done between 3 and 4 o'clock. And when I get home, I usually eat something, lay down and go to sleep. And for definitely the first 2 appointments, I slept from 5 p.m. to the next day, like completely. And then usually the next day, I'm also not quite myself. I'm a little still tired and groggy and like, meh. And again, it's different for everyone. So I don't know how you or your body will react. But for me, I give myself a couple of days of like, what I always tell people is my Remicade coma. Where I do not plan on doing a whole lot of anything other than sleeping and watching my Netflix. I also don't feel like cooking usually, so I'll cook in advance. I'm the cooker, and my husband is not great in the kitchen, so he sometimes has trouble boiling water. So I do the cooking, so I'll either cook in advance, or my husband is amazing. He will order my favorite thing for dinner the night of an infusion. So get you an amazing husband too. Or wife, whatever floats your boat. So anyway, Remicade coma, usually kind of trying to recover and like bounce back from that. So real quick, what amazed me about Remicade from the very first dose, within 3 or 4 days after, I did not take the opioid anymore. I wasn't waking up in pain. I was able to sit without like a wincing feeling like I was being stabbed with something sharp. It was truly a miracle. I call it my magic nectar because it really is. It saved my life in so many ways. Anyway, so I had my second dose 2 weeks later. I really didn't have any pain come back between those doses. On my third dose, where I had a full 4 weeks between those first 2, the last 3 or 4 days before my Remicade infusion, some of the pain had come back. Not nearly as bad. I could still sit, but definitely I was taking Tylenol again, which I had completely gone off of all pain medication. Opioid for sure, but Tylenol as well. I was on nothing. So the Remicade was amazing for my fistulas and my type of Crohn's, complex paraanal. Now, I just had my 4th infusion, which was a 2-month waiting window in between. My pain had come back. The last, I'm gonna say 21 days, 3 weeks or so, up until my infusion yesterday, which was July 2nd. So from about the middle of June on, my pain was back. And the first 2 weeks was just Tylenol pain. You know, I could handle it with Tylenol. But this last week, it was opioid pain for a few days because could not sleep through the night, was waking up in pain, couldn't sit. I'm still sitting on a pillow now. But yeah, I was ready for that magic nectar. So I just had the infusion yesterday. By past accounts, I should be feeling back to myself in, I don't know, I'm hoping by the 5th or 6th of July, 2020. So pretty quick turnaround on how I will feel better if the past is anything to go off of. So anyway, so my doctor for me is trying to fight to get me infusions monthly because clearly that is the only thing that is kind of controlling what's going on with this flare that I'm in. I am in a heck of a flare, although I kind of say to people, it's 2020, y'all. Have you not been paying attention? There is a pandemic that literally could kill me because my immune system is at 0. We're worried about whether my husband will lose his job, which then makes us worried about health insurance, and then just all the things that you worry about in the middle of a pandemic. And this election cycle has gay people a little edgy. So lots of things to be stressed about. So what I would advise anyone going through this, if you're scared about Remicade at all, or you're concerned about it, my DMs are always open on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Barrett_Laurie, and you'll find up on the banner the links to my Twitter and my Instagram. DM me. I will talk to you any time of the day or night about this experience and what I think of Remicade, any advice I can give you, and I'll just listen. I mean, if you just need someone to listen, which sometimes that is what you need, I am 100% here for you. This has been an incredible experience. I have been blessed with just amazing medical team that loves me and cares about me and really puts their patients first. And not everybody has that. So whatever you need, if you're going through this and you need someone who understands to just listen or give you some feedback and some advice, please DM me on Instagram or Twitter. I will get back to you as soon as I can. And know that you are not alone. We are all Crohn's warriors here. We understand it better than anybody else, because if they haven't been through it, they just don't get it. So not in a bad way, but you know what I mean. So if you need me, reach out. If this video was helpful for you, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and ding the bell below for updates when I do new videos. I intend to do videos 3 to 4 times a week. 2 of them will be for my Dear Barrett series, which is just a personal advice series that I have fun with. I intend to do at least 1 video a week regarding Crohn's treatments, insurance, Remicade, just the whole experience. Sometimes just the mental health aspect. At some point I want to do an interview with my husband to talk about what it's like for the caretakers, for those of us that are going through it, because they go through a lot too. And then also, again, as I said before, I'm a writer, I'm an author, so I am doing some videos and intend to continue to do videos about my process trying to get my first novel published, and just writing in general. So if any of that is interesting to you, go ahead and click the subscribe button, ding the bell. You'll get notifications every time I have a new video. And for now, Cronies, I love you. I send you all the love and light and wish you nothing but the best on your journey with Remicade.